Hi, I'm Claire and today I'm going to do 3 more short reviews of comic book titles. So let's get started with Bitch Planet Volume 1 Extraordinary Machine by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentine DeLandro. This is published by Image Comics, and spoiler alert, the other 2 are also published by Image because that's most of what I read these days. This book is set in a near future where things have gone very, very, very wrong, and women, absolutely all women, have to comply with the ruling class, which is basically the patriarchy. It's not subtle, they're even called the fathers. If a woman fails to act in the way that a proper woman should, she is deemed non-compliant, and non-compliant women are basically shipped off planet to a prison colony, which is nicknamed Bitch Planet. And this book opens with the newest fresh shipment of prisoners to be delivered on the planet. It's a very disparate group of women that are there for many, many different reasons, because it doesn't take much in this world to be deemed non-compliant. These women have to get to know one another and start working together to stay alive and defend themselves in this really horrible, brutal prison environment, to defend themselves against crooked guards, one another's hidden agendas, and even a deadly team sport that they get roped into. First, I need to let the record show that my friend Nick Bryan knows me extremely well because he got me a copy of this book for my birthday. Maybe I'm just extremely transparent and like a violent political feminist comic book sounded just like my thing. I already had this when he gave it to me, so he's going to get me book 2 when that comes out, so I already know I'm continuing this series, which is exciting. First, let's talk about the art in this book. Generally, I quite like it. It's a kind of like dark but realistic type of art. I can't show you too many pages because a lot of them have naked ladies on them. It is absolutely not safe to read at work or, you know, places where there might be small children. But one thing I have to say is that the nudity that exists in this book is not what I found to be uncomfortable in it. Like, the story and the themes felt a lot more oppressive and uncomfortable than the nudity itself. One of the only places that the inmates can talk freely without guards listening is in the shower, so you kind of see naked bodies because of that, but it's absolutely not the type of representation of naked women that you tend to see in media in general. It's completely non-sexualized, and at the same time it's bodies that feel a lot more normal than the bodies that you might otherwise see, because you just have women of all shapes and sizes and ages and ethnicities, and so just like felt completely normal. Just maybe don't read it at work. Overall, I think the art in this book matches really well with the atmosphere of the story. The general tone of everything is just kind of dark and bleak and uncomfortable and gritty, and all of that is completely intentional and it works well together, but it wasn't my favorite in terms of art, just because of the kind of slightly oppressive impression that you get from it. And I understand that that is completely purposeful, and I don't dislike the art at all, but I can't get to that level of absolutely loving it because I think it was made to be fairly uncomfortable. As I mentioned, the story is pretty brutal. It's full of really great twists and turns. There's one moment in particular where you read a few pages and you think that one thing is happening, and then there's a twist that comes down and you have to go back and reread the past couple of pages to see what it was that you were actually seeing. There are some great foundations that are laid down for later in this book. However, because you have a lot of characters, the one thing that I didn't think we got enough of was backstories of various different characters. There is a lot of backstory on one specific character, but I didn't feel like I knew a lot of the people involved except for 1 or 2 of the women. I would like to have more of an idea of who these women are, especially given by the end you have a team that's been formed and you kind of feel like you'd like to know who the teammates are. Like I said, overall it's pretty bleak and dark, and I didn't find it to be the most comfortable book to read. At the same time, it's very clearly intended to be that way, and I can't wait to see what goes on in volume 2 and to get more of the story. Next, I've got Saga Volume 5, written by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by Fiona Staples. This is also published by Image Comics. If you've not read Saga before, the whole premise of the story is that you have a couple, Marco and Alana, who meet whilst they are both soldiers on opposite sides of a great galactic war. They fall in love, they get married, and they have a baby. No one really wants the rest of the world to know that that baby exists, and so they're kind of running for their lives and the life of their young family. Without going too much into spoiler territory, by the beginning of this volume, things have gotten pretty bad for our protagonists. There is a lot that Marco and Alana have to redeem themselves for, and there are more and more people coming after Hazel every day. Meanwhile, Gwendolyn, Sophie and Lion Cat are on a mission to help the Will, and Prince Robot is done with this nonsense and he will not stop at anything to get what it is that he's after. Now, one thing that hasn't changed for me about Saga is quite how much I love Fiona Staples' art. I think it's really beautiful. I'm showing you safe for work pages here, but there are some pretty like gruesome, violent, and also kind of gross things in there. For the story, I have to say I did not enjoy this volume quite as much as I did volumes 1 through 4. I'm still pretty invested in the main story of Marco and Alana and protecting Hazel, but I was less convinced by the narrative style in this book. There has been a narrative commentary by grown-up Hazel looking back on her childhood throughout all of the books, so it's not new to this one. I just noticed it more maybe in this one. It just kind of didn't really work for me here, and I think it's becoming a little bit frustrating as well to try and fit so many different stories in the one volume, because we now have some pretty important secondary characters on their own doing their own thing. Trying to fit all of the main protagonists and important secondary characters that I really care about and want to know about in just the one volume didn't work out for me so well this time around. It just felt really frustrating because I wanted more of each of the stories. And in addition to the fact that I didn't feel like all of these stories advanced enough, I also really didn't like where some of the stories left off. Specifically, right now, I have all the feels about the story of Gwendolyn, Sophie, Lion Cat, and the Will. I'm upset about what's going on in that storyline, and I want to know that it gets better. Also, minor spoilers, I really did not need to see an illustration of a dragon wanking. For the rest of the series, I'm still interested in reading it. I might not buy volume 6 directly on release because I've been buying a lot of graphic novels lately and they get expensive very fast, but I definitely still want to know what goes on and read the rest of it. And finally, we have Descender Volume 1, 10 Stars, written by Jeff Lemire and illustrated by Dustin Nguyen. This is also published by Image Comics. We are in a world that used to be full of robots and AIs and androids, and we used to use them for everything. Except after some giant killing war machines popped up out of nowhere and started killing millions of people, well, the survivors aren't too keen on robots anymore, and they start to outlaw AIs and melt machinery and just basically make it so that it can never happen again. Years later, our story begins when Tim 21 wakes up on a lifeless mining colony. He is a little android and one of the very few that remains. He is a companion AI, and that means his job was to be a little boy's best friend. So when he wakes up, he has to adjust to this new life where his family is all gone and he has a whole bunch of people after him. He has government people after him to study him, but he also has bounty hunters after him that want to grab him and melt him. Now, I absolutely adore the art style in this comic. It's got this fairly bleak and cold color palette, but at the same time, it's all kind of softened by really, really beautiful watercolors. It does have some red on some pages because it's quite brutal at times too. It's also got some really beautiful spreads. I quite enjoy this page. You can see the kind of like sepia color palette that is used for Tim 21's memories that come up at several points during the book. I find the premise of the book absolutely fascinating, the kind of large-scale story of the world having gone up to a certain level of technological advance and then having to just go back down from that because we've realized it's actually really dangerous and we can't control it, is already a fascinating premise for me. But all of that is only really the background, the setting to Tim 21's own personal story. That's really where the focus is of the narration in this book, and I think that's why this for me worked better than Bitch Planet so far as just grabbing me and pulling on my heartstrings. I particularly like the section of the story in which he has all of the flashbacks about how he first came to the mining colony, his family, how he was made. Those moments felt really impactful, and if you're the kind of person who gets upset at Toy Story because the toys have feelings, damn it, then this is probably going to give you all of the feels like it did for me. So that's it, those were my mini reviews for Bitch Planet Volume 1, Saga Volume 5 and Descender Volume 1. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. If you'd like to see more from me, check out the sidebar right here for more videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for new videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.